Fear and Leasing, Chapter 16, The Offer. There are mornings when the kettle seems to boil just to spite you, when the tea bag breaks and fills your cup with grit, when your shirt smells faintly of bin juice but you wear it anyway because frankly you've already lost the war. This was one of those mornings. I sat alone in the Gordonvale office, staring out at a damp patch of sky, watching birds fight over something shiny in the car park. It was too early for complaints, too late for dreams. Denise was off sick. Ray had broken the window handle last week and it still hadn't been fixed. The blinds hung at half-mast like we were mourning something, though I couldn't say what. I took a sip of coffee and tasted burnt rubber, instant Chad brand. The man had all the taste of a wet sponge. There were no inspections scheduled, no tribunal hearings, no landlord tantrums or tenant disappearances. Just me, a flickering overhead light, and a blank incident report form. In the silence, something unusual crept in, reflection. I'd been doing this job for 9 years. Give or take the few weeks I'd gone missing in 2017, and the infamous 2-month transfer to admin where I developed a stress rash and an allergy to spreadsheets. 9 years of lost keys, barking dogs, driveways that collapsed underfoot. 9 years of barely passable inspections, of emails that began with just following up and ended with passive aggression. And what had I learned? That no two dishwashers are the same. That quiet tenant is usually code for hot plate meth lab. That a smile from a landlord is the most reliable predictor of a future complaint. Still, something about Gordonvale was off. Not bad, exactly, but unsettling in its civility. People said thank you. One tenant left a biscuit tin on the windowsill for me. I opened it expecting roaches or teeth. It was full of Anzacs. Was I going soft? Ray burst in at one point with a packet of Cheezels and a head injury. He said it was from accidentally stepping into the roof void. I asked what he was doing up there.
Chasing a pigeon,
he said. I nodded, as if that explained anything. He offered me a Cheezel. I declined. He left, and then I was alone again. A young agent once asked me if I saw myself still doing this in 10 years. I laughed at the time, telling him if I'm still doing this in 10 years, check the water supply. I've been poisoned or blackmailed. But now, 10 years wasn't so far off, and the water tasted fine. I didn't hate the work. Not really. I hated what it did to people, how it made them defensive, small, obsessed with line items and bin placement, how it reduced entire human lives to carpet stains and rent arrears. But there were moments, like sitting on Glenn's patio drinking homebrew and listening to him talk about the time he hitchhiked to Darwin and accidentally joined a commune, or seeing the way Denise could talk a furious owner down with just a sigh and a raised eyebrow, or even Ray, grinning proudly after reinstalling the hand dryer upside down. Now the heat rises, he said, as if he'd discovered gravity. These people weren't normal, and maybe I wasn't either. I pulled out my notebook, the one I kept hidden in the bottom drawer, the one that wasn't for forms or inspections, just scribbles, notes, observations. Tenant 4B talks to her plants in French. Ray pronounces gutter like guitar. The difference between a home and a house is whether or not there's a dog bowl. I closed the book. Maybe I'd stick around a little longer. At least until Ray inevitably set something on fire again. Or until Chad discovered the Gordonvale branch was more efficient without his input. Maybe the real reason I stayed wasn't masochism or inertia. Maybe I stayed because every time I was about to quit, the job turned into something new. Just as I was leaning back in my chair, arms crossed behind my head like some kind of philosopher of rusted gutters, I heard it. The unmistakable sound of an unfamiliar engine idling far too long in the staff parking bay. Moments later, the front door opened with unnecessary theatrical flair. A gust of hot air blew in, along with a man in a pressed corporate shirt and a face that looked like it hadn't known joy since the pre-interest rate era. Chad, holding 2 takeaway coffees and a folder that was either a formal job offer or a restraining order.
Well,
He said, squinting like he didn't trust the lighting.
this is quaint.
I didn't get up. Gavin pretended to type. Caleb briefly considered hiding under the desk. Denise was still off sick.
I come bearing options,
Chad said, as if this were a corporate Hunger Games. He handed me one of the coffees. It was, of course, almond milk, vanilla, flat white, extra hot, no lid. It burned my hand immediately. He perched on the corner of the front counter like a man about to deliver a TED Talk to a room full of animals.
So, you've been embedded here for, 6 weeks now?
Feels like longer.
We've been impressed. HQ thinks you're stabilizing the branch. Tenancy feedback is up. Lease renewals are ahead of target. Denise even said you only swore in front of a client once last fortnight.
Twice, I corrected. She didn't hear the second one.
Point is, the plan worked. Gordonvale is no longer a punchline.
He opened the folder and slid 2 sheets across the desk like they were trading cards.
Option A, you stay here permanently. Field specialist, regional stability, same pay, slightly more admin, no change to your hours. You'll continue being the glue.
Sounds sticky.
Option B, you come back to Cairns. Head office role, title bump, more money, own desk with a phone that actually works. Also, air conditioning.
I looked at the forms. The Cairns contract was thick and heavy, with clauses and key performance indicators in bold. The Gordonvale one looked like it had been printed off the back of a cereal box. It even had a smiley face sticker next to working hours. I took a long sip of my coffee and stared out the window. The street outside was quiet. A kid on a BMX cycled past holding a loaf of bread like a trophy. A magpie attacked a side mirror. The office buzzed with the soft, familiar whine of a ceiling fan that refused to spin faster than a funeral dirge. "I'll stay," I said. Chad blinked.
Sorry?
"I'll stay in Gordonvale." He looked genuinely shocked, like he'd expected me to leap at the chance to sit in a cubicle surrounded by strategic planners and HR initiatives with acronyms no one understands.
May I ask why?
I considered the question. Because here, no one cared if I wore the same shirt 2 days in a row. Because the printer hadn't jammed in a week. Because Glenn's beer was better than anything from the Dan Murphy's clearance shelf. Because Ray, for all his flaws, had somehow made this place feel comfortable. "Less traffic," I said instead. Chad studied me for a long moment, as if trying to calculate how deeply I'd broken from the corporate matrix.
Well, we'll need to update your email signature.
Make it say Wizard of the South. He wrote something down, probably monitor for burnout. Then he stood up, offered a stiff handshake, and left as suddenly as he'd arrived. As the engine of his car faded into the distance, I sat back down and breathed out. Caleb popped his head out from behind the partition.
"Was that Chad?"
"Like a hallucination, but real," I said. Gavin wandered over.
Did he make you go back?
"No," I said. "I chose this madness willingly." There was a pause.
Want to come get a pie with me?
"Only if it's from the servo that sells the ones with good gravy." We grabbed our keys and left the office unattended. Again. Somehow, I felt more in control than ever.